Hello, Zalto Live listeners. Before we get started, we wanted to let you know that more teachings from Zen monk Claude AnShin Thomas are available in his two books, At Hell's Gate, A Soldier's Journey from War to Peace, and Bringing Meditation to Life, 108 Teachings on the Path of Zen Practice. Both are available wherever books are sold, and all proceeds go to the Zalto Foundation, dedicated to promoting nonviolence, awareness, and positive change.
Hello and welcome to Zalto Live, the podcast featuring Zen Buddhist monk Claude AnShin Thomas, who will share with you his life experiences that includes not only military combat, personal violence, and addiction, but also healing, transformation, and the ongoing joy of everyday life. Please enjoy listening.
I've been in retreat here all day. I haven't had a chance to check to see if any questions have been mailed. If you mailed any questions in, I'll get to them next Sunday. I'm open for questions. KG.
Wenn ein Mensch getötet wurde, ein Mensch, der ganz viele schlimme Sachen getan hat.
When a person gets killed, a person who has done many terrible things,
sollte man diesen Tod feiern?
Should one celebrate the death?
I don't know that death should ever be celebrated. I mean, people have mixed. There are many different kinds of rituals around death. I guess the response to your question would be whatever seems appropriate to you at the time. I don't know that there's a fixed rule about this. Question from the group. Yes, Myo Zen.
How do you differentiate this inside voice that gives good advices or the voice that keeps us trapped in our suffering?
I don't really differentiate. The world does that for me. It depends on my willingness to see and the information that the world is giving me. Question from the group. Daishin.
AnShin, when do you not see what the world is telling you?
Yeah, when I listen too hard to the wrong voice. Yeah, and I do that thing more than once. No, it can happen. Generally, it's because I just didn't understand the language. But what in front of the action. But once the action has been committed and the consequences come to bear, I understand that language. And I don't do that again. All of that helps me to expand my vocabulary. Question from the group? Oh, yes. Getsugan.
AnShin, I remember you saying regarding our childhood realities that we can choose whether the past continues to run our lives or whether it can serve us as an asset. Would you talk about it or give an example on this decision point?
So, what my mother did to me was criminal, absolutely criminal. And so I continued to use that as a reason to not be responsible. I used it as a way to put cotton in my ears, to not listen to the information that the world was giving me. What my mother did to me was criminal. What I do with that, though, now today is my responsibility. So through practice, I arrive at a point where I don't reject the past. And I remember, but I choose not to let it run my life. I don't dwell in that. I have by all of this, I've been presented with wonderful opportunities. By being willing to just know that I have been affected. And to live in a different relationship with that. I have a chance to heal my mother in me. Because I also at one point had to ask the question, what must have happened to my mother to react to me and treat me the way she did? This is in no way to excuse the behavior, diminish it, or to rationalize it. But I stopped a long time ago. And, I'm like this because It may be true, so what do I do with that? Dwell in it, to swim in it. It does nothing for me. It can be trapped in these repeating cycles. Question from the group.
Kyodo.
What is the point to answer to a person that always does the same question?
I find those kind of interactions interesting. To see how many different ways I can respond to the same question. Yeah. It's just, you never know when something might penetrate. Yeah, it's a good exercise. Question from the group. Yes, Gabi.
Meine Frage bezieht sich auf das, was deine Mutter dir angetan hat.
My question is in regards to what your mother did to you.
Hast du da in der Vergangenheit speziell für das eine Therapie gebraucht oder gemacht, oder war es wichtig für dich, darüber oft zu sprechen?
Did you in the past do a kind of specialized therapy about this? Did you need it, or did you do it? Or was it also that you needed to talk about this for quite a bit more often?
No special therapy. I'm a bit skeptical about specialized therapies. That being said, I wasn't there quite some time. It was through therapy, in the safety of that environment, that I took some risk to talk about something. It was in therapy that I began I just began to see some connections intellectually, and it is through spiritual practice that I began to not just comprehend the connection, but to really see how they manifested in my life. And that it was my responsibility to live in a different relation with these things, and also to be connected with people who had the motivation not to continue to dwell in these negative places. Question from the group. Yes, first Myoshin and then Genshin. Sorry, Genrai.
Anshin, can competitiveness be a good thing, or is it always best not to compare oneself with others?
I'm constantly in competition myself. I'm ruthless. I really can't set any limits to this process of awakening. And to that end, I really value associating with people who are smarter, more competent, more informed, who are also insightful. And I really value those kinds of relations. I like those kinds of challenges. If I'm connected with people who want to compete all the time, I just don't. I step back. I don't care. I don't have the energy. I mean, I do, but I have better places to put it. I just don't. Yeah. Not all that important to me anymore. But I love being challenged. Question from the group.
Anshin, is part of the healing process you were talking about regarding your mother also to re-feel and acknowledge the feelings of the child that has been experienced or abused?
No, not really. I don't know about this. I don't know about all this inner child business. I understand that it's beneficial for some people, so I don't discourage it. I don't see the point in it. It's a bit too intellectual for me. Right now, I just still like to be childlike. Yeah, just to be silly. There's always a direction to my actions. I can remember on one occasion, when I was living in Massachusetts, I was with some people, and we were on the beach. And I can remember suddenly being just really quite overwhelmed. I was just really acutely aware of what it must have been like for me at 17. My 17 was a lot different than a lot of people's 17. And at the same time, I can remember being really angry that I had to pay for someone to be my parent. Because therapy was a bit like that for me. It was a bit like parenting, or at least I experienced it so. Not always, but sometimes. But I'm not into No, the other things, I don't do those things. But I still have teddy bears in my room. I love them. Yes, I had this really nice blue teddy bear. And every now and then I just like to pick it up and cuddle it. I give little kisses. But this has nothing to do with nurturing the inner child. It just has to do with me, being me, and letting go of ideas of how I'm supposed to be or any of that. Yoko.
Anshin, when the neighbor across the street came across the street and verbally assaulted you, is there any feelings around not responding violently or with aggression?
Yeah, there were feelings of thankfulness. And really, I said it before, it was the cats that prevented me from reacting to that aggression with aggression. Yeah, because I was ready to go out the door. But if I unlock the door and I bust out of the door, the cats might get out. They're not outside cats. Suddenly they would be outside and confused. That would be terrible. Now, I also had thoughts later, thoughts of thankfulness, that I can have all of the feelings that I have around such an event, have all the thoughts that I have around such an event, not have to reject them or allow them to own me, but that I can have those thoughts and feelings and perceptions and let them live their life and then pass away. Every now and then, I still kind of wonder if I still have the capacity. I couldn't have gone out the door and immobilized this. But then when I think the process through, the police come, there's a commotion in the neighborhood. I don't need all of that. But he doesn't want to do that to me again. Next time I will deal with it differently. Question from the group. Robert.
When you react the same way to certain events for decades, and then the day comes when you no longer have to react that way to those events, isn't that the freedom of practice?
I wouldn't say freedom, I would say benefit. But of course, at the root of all of that, I really have to want to be different. I've got to want to not do that stuff, even though there's still pieces of me that are conditioned to do it, just not. So in this particular instance, what I experienced was the power of cats. Question from the group. Yes, Kelvin.
Would you please share your thoughts on the precept of not being stingy with the Dharma, if I remember that correctly?
Well, the precept is to not be stingy in the bestowal of the teaching. That simply manifests through the way in which I live my life. Teachings are merely how I live my life. That's how they are communicated. That's how they manifest. It's quite practical. Remember, it's not practical, it's not spiritual. That's the root of all of that. Question from the group. Yes, Yoshin.
On that same precept, does it mean that if I'm asked to provide instructions on the form of meditation, that I should always say yes, no matter the circumstances?
No. Well, most of the time. But really, it does, it's like, I know if I'm really present, somebody might ask me, I might have a sense that they're not so serious. If that's the case, so in not being stingy in the bestowal of the teaching, I'll simply invite them to sitting. If it's someone local, they can come in person. If it's someone else, they can come online. If they really want to know, then they'll come. Question from the group. Yes, Zen.
Do you think that it is important to make mistakes so that we can develop ourselves?
I don't run around consciously making mistakes. Yes, no, I wouldn't do that. But I am of the nature to make mistakes. Once, not repeat that mistake. I value mistakes today because they are learning opportunities. Listen. Question from the group. Kyoto.
Has it happened to you that you still repeat mistake?
No. One time's enough for me today. Question from the group. Oh, there he is. Sure.
So you say all spiritual things are practical. Is that correct?
No, that's not what I said. I said if a thing is not practical, it's not spiritual.
But that contradicts the statement that you just said. I mean, if
what statement?
That some things are then some spiritual items are not practical.
I'm sorry. On this particular line of conversation, I am not following you. Rather than going through a long conversation about this, simple question.
My question, my complete question was if are all practical things spiritual?
Yes. Why not? Question from the group. Oh, Kyoto.
I guess there is a difference between mistakes and errors.
I have to think about that. I don't know. It doesn't matter to me. I don't need to it just doesn't matter to me. I don't need to make differentiations like that. I guess technically if you look the word up, they might have different definitions, but the definition might also say an error is a mistake. I don't know. Definitions sometimes go like that. It's just that kind of splitting is just not so important to me. Yes, Yoshin, and then Genrei.
So when you make that mistake for the first time, do you feel a sense of embarrassment or humiliation or shame?
Not anymore. No, there was a time when that would have been the case, but not anymore. There was another question. Oh yeah, Genrei, thank you.
How is it to be back at the Red Maple Zen Center back in Italy, and how did the first events go?
The bed's a little small, but I'm glad it's not too warm or too cold. It rains a lot. I was thinking that it would never stop raining. However, the events to date have all gone quite well. The retreat that just concluded, it was a good group of people. Yes, and they were a bit skeptical in the beginning. They were reserved in an Italian sort of way, but they really warmed quickly. So it was a nice group. Built a good connection with them. Appreciated their efforts because some of the things were there were some new people, and I really appreciated their effort and the questions that they had. Yeah. Last question. Peter.
The room that you're in looks like it's an ancient structure. Can you describe where you are and physically?
I'm sitting in a chair. It's a folding chair. Actually, the structure is pretty ancient. Yes, it was built in the 1700s. So this space that we're in right now, that is the Zendo, at one time might have been a place for animals. Overall structure was originally a farm of some sort. Yes, Casorzo is quite in the countryside. And like many of these villages in the countryside, they have lost a significant population. And so there are quite some abandoned houses. So one of the things Kyoto has been doing is bit by bit, as he's able to afford, caring for the place, improving here and there. It's his efforts that made this Zendo. But yes, it's all old vaulted ceilings. When it's cold, it's cold. When it's hot, it's not so hot. If it gets hot, it's always hot. Such is the nature of these older places.
Thank you for listening to this episode on Zalto Live. If you would like additional information, please look at the show notes or visit zalto.org. That's ZALTHO.org. Our work is made possible solely through donations, so please consider making a tax-deductible gift on our website. We wish you well and thank you.